Good morning, everyone. My name is Gyan Bhambani, and I am the host of the Entrepreneurship Insights Podcast. Today, our guest is Yoder. He was practicing physical therapy when he realized his true passion was building his own business and investing in real estate. He took this passion and considerable action to quickly build a portfolio with several small apartment buildings. He was able to quickly reposition this portfolio, bring it to full cycle, and provide an incredible return for his investors. Today, Lee is focused on syndicating larger apartment buildings. He is the founder and visionary behind ThreeFold Real Estate investing, and he's committed to forging a path that will generate incredible wealth and opportunity for all involved. His focus is driving the business forward by forging new relationships with top-notch professionals in the real estate world and bringing on more partners to invest alongside ThreeFold. Lee also hosts a podcast, the ThreeFold Real Estate Investing, which discusses multifamily real estate investing while also focusing on pursuing better relationships with family and a better walk with Christ. It's a pleasure having you on the podcast today, Lee.
Thanks, Gyan. It's a pleasure to be on.
Yes, definitely. So, a quick introduction question I have is, give us some background. How did you get started? I gave some introduction that you discovered physical therapy, but would you mind going into more detail on how that passion for real estate really came about?
Yeah, the genesis of it was, I was climbing the corporate ladder, working just a corporate job. I actually wasn't doing any physical therapy at the time. I was still a physical therapist, but I became a clinical director with the company. And just kept moving more and more into kind of an office position. I was the clinical director over a bunch of other therapists, kind of moving more into a director of operations role. And I was really enjoying that, Gyan. I actually didn't miss physical therapy at all. And this was like my first realization of I'm really not passionate about physical therapy. I'm more passionate about business and like operations and kind of entrepreneurship, because with the company I was with in the office, kind of running that division, I was really building my own division, and the company was a startup in itself. So I was working for a startup and really leading a division. And so it felt kind of entrepreneurial for me, and I loved it. I mean, I really enjoyed my work. The problem with it is, and I think a lot of people find this out, is I was kind of just becoming consumed with that job. And my wife and I were starting a family. And we just, after doing that for a while, a couple of years, even, like, we just didn't feel like that was the life God called us to. Even though I really enjoyed my work, it was like, it just felt like I either have to be all in on work and then really not be the husband and father that I want to be, or like I'm gonna have to leave this job. So didn't like just jump out right away, but started getting a little disenchanted with it. And then just had a coworker, a close friend of mine, was kind of having some of the same feelings. He handed me a real estate book. And it wasn't a great real estate book, but it kind of opened the door, and I started going down that rabbit hole. And I ended up reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, which so many people talk about. And it was definitely eye-opening for me, definitely transformational. And I just started to think, like, okay, maybe there's a way I can still work, because I love to work. It's honestly like a blessing and a curse. But I really love to work. So it wasn't like, hey, I just want to work less hours. I just want to be able to control it more. And I felt like maybe real estate is a way I could, work really hard and do well, but just have more control. So that was kind of the genesis of it. I've come to love it, but at the time, it wasn't that I thought I was going to love it. It felt like a better lifestyle design, potentially.
Yeah, so it started out as a necessity rather than just, hey, let me explore something new because I want to, right? You had your family to care for, and yeah, it's just that these entrepreneurial solutions just sometimes come out of necessity, sometimes kind of just exploration. So, sure. What do you enjoy most about this type of lifestyle, Lee?
Yeah, what I just said. I mean, it really has become that for me. I work really hard, and not harder than everybody else or anything like that. But I do still work really hard. But I really enjoy the work I'm doing. So I'm actually very passionate about real estate. I love doing it. I love what I do. But yeah, I think what I enjoy most is that I can work really hard at it. and see results from that. But I'm able to control it. I mean, I get up very early, often get work done in the morning before my kids are up. So I'm working, but not missing time with the kids. I can do that in the evenings too. When I was climbing the corporate ladder, I would do that, but they didn't, like, they were happy about it, but they still wanted me in the office at 7:30 and didn't want me to leave till 5:30. So it's like, yeah, you can work extra hours. That's great. You can work on Saturday. We want you to do that, but still got to be here from 7:30 to 5:30. And that a lot of people are like, yeah, I do that every day. Well, I didn't want to be away that much. I wanted to be able to work those hours like in the morning or in the evening. And now I can do that. So now I can work really hard, but like if I want to, I just do it whenever I want. That's the best part about it. I can work really hard, but I do it during the hours of the day that make the most sense for me and my family.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. So, how did you stay focused in your difficult times and in the difficult times of your career?
I think just having the support of my wife. It's something that we were always praying through. We're Christ followers, and we felt like God did have a plan. It just, with our faith, we just believe that sometimes it's going to be in God's timing and not ours. So just trying to stay patient, just reminding ourselves. And once I kind of got a vision, Gian, and really got passionate about it, I was fixated on that. And then, it did make it harder to wait because I was like so ready to pursue what I felt like was God's calling. But just feeling like it's there, it's going to be there. We're going to get there. I'm going to get to do that, but it just may not be right now. And then I guess too, I think, Jan, what's really important is, when I was all in on real estate, okay, I had not bought anything, right? And I'm doing physical therapy, and I don't want to be doing physical therapy. I want to be doing real estate, but I've got a family, so I got to keep my full-time job. You can't just, you can, but we didn't want to just jump and go from, a good paying job to no paying job and then just go to real estate. So I had to stay in that job. But the cool thing is, like, I could start educating myself, start listening to podcasts, start reading books, start making phone calls, start going to events. So that's what helped me stay focused. Was I'm taking the steps, right? I'm taking steps. I'm moving toward the goal all the time, even while I'm working. So I think that's what helps you stay focused. If you've got a goal of getting into real estate, don't make your first step buying your first property. Make your first step educating yourself. Make your second step networking. Make your third step job shadowing someone. Make your fourth step starting to underwrite. So doing that, then you feel like, okay, I'm moving along. I'm still working a full-time job that I don't want to be doing. I still haven't bought a property, but I'm taking these steps. I think that helps you stay focused.
Yeah, and the steps that you mentioned, just like educating yourself, networking, and all that. Those in itself are like big steps, right? And to
Sure.
fully complete that, you got to take even smaller steps, right? And
Right.
so I feel for you, knowing that whatever you did was in pursuit of that goal really kept you going.
Mm-hmm.
So, knowing what you do now, would you do anything differently? Maybe start earlier, or leave your corporate job a bit earlier, or do anything differently?
Well, it depends how far back I could go. I wouldn't even went to grad school to be a physical therapist. I think I still would have done undergrad because it was a blast. So I wouldn't go back and give that up. But coming out of undergrad, I would have just went right into real estate. So yeah, sure, I would have started earlier. But if I couldn't have started earlier, like, would I have went a different path? I don't know that I would have. We moved pretty quickly from a single family into a duplex and into a 16 unit. And I always wanted to get into multifamily. So we went pretty quickly into multifamily, and we didn't do that many deals, which was also kind of a good thing. So I wish I would have started earlier, but other than that, I wouldn't really change anything, I don't think.
That's awesome, just not having any regrets, and that really keeps you focused. Mm-hmm. So, what lessons you mentioned earlier that you educated yourself through podcasts and books and such, and so what lessons did you learn along the way?
I knew I wanted to get in real estate, and listening to podcasts, most of the people that I felt like I identified with and just really respected and looked at them, and from what I heard from them, obviously I don't know these people, but I'm like, I think they're doing the real estate that I want to do, but much more importantly, I think they have the life that I want to have. Because you can look at someone and think, man, they're making millions of dollars a year doing real estate, but they're single, and that's fine. But it's like, okay, but I can't replicate that because I'm not single. So I live a very different life, right? Or they'll talk about how their divorce went down, right? Like I don't want that either. So the people that I really identified with and people I was like, I think I want that lifestyle in real estate. They were multifamily, and they were saying go bigger, faster, expand your mind, partner, network. You don't have to do a few dozen flips before you can move into multifamily. Like you don't have to build up your portfolio to 10 single family homes before you can go into multifamily. You can go into it earlier. I think that was the biggest thing for me because I knew the end goal for me was to own a 100 unit apartment building, 100 plus. Like I've always been pretty confident, again, because the people, I wanted to emulate. That's what they were doing. So I kind of knew that was a goal, but I didn't start there. And I don't necessarily, if I went back, I don't think I would necessarily try to make my first property a 100 unit apartment building, but I did take pretty big steps in that direction pretty quickly. And it was because of what I was hearing on the podcast and what I was reading in the books.
Yeah, so for you, Lee, it was trying to replicate that sort of lifestyle. Like, if you're single, I don't really like how people call, like, I don't really vibe with you. Like in that sort of sense, and so and that's really important. Just being able to get to know what's out there. And the thing is that each journey is unique and different. So, what ventures in real estate have you been already exposed to, and what do you want to explore further?
So we've flipped 2 single family homes. So I've done a couple flips. We owned a duplex and rented that out, and we managed that as the landlords. So I got to experience like the small multifamily. I got to experience being a landlord. Liked owning the small multifamily, but wanted to own bigger ones and did not like being a landlord. We really enjoyed flipping, but we just, flipping is not investing. There's nothing passive about it. It's just a different job. It's just a job. It's a job I like. My wife actually likes it. The older our kids get, I think it'll be fun doing it with them as well. So I think we'll flip again, but it's just not investing. It's not passive income. So kind of learned all that. And then we got into some small, I would say like mid-sized multifamily, small to mid-size, like a 16 unit, 10 unit. And we did joint ventures on those. So got to kind of experience the joint venture model or setup, which is kind of simple. Just find a couple people, 1 or 2 people put up the money, and one person's probably doing more of the work. And you can cash flow pretty well and turn things around. So got to experience that. And now we do syndication on 40 plus apartment buildings. We did a couple in the 40s, and then now we're getting ready to close on nearly a 100 unit apartment building. So I've kind of done just about everything as far as like rentals from single family, up to 100 unit, but I haven't done anything beyond 100 units yet. And I guess that's what I want to explore next. I want to buy a 200 unit property. There's some real, everybody talks about the economies of scale, and I thought, okay, like once I get to 40, 60, 80 units, there'll be some economies of scale. And there are some, but I almost think there's like a number that's like maybe more like 120, 130, maybe like for sure 150. When you get beyond that, there's some real economies of scale there of having 2, 3, 4 people full-time on site, really running it smoothly. So that's what I want to explore next.
Yeah, I love your visions. I've talked with quite a few people, and some people just don't go to real estate because of the dangers, and specifically like renting out properties. Like, what if the people living in your house are like not very nice to you? Like, what if they do something wrong, or what if they? It's like there's a lot of what ifs with it. So how did you tackle the dangers and the cons of renting out and meeting new people that way?
Sure. If you do a single family home as a rental, there is that risk, because if the person doesn't work out and they move out, then you have 0% occupancy, right? 100% vacancy. Whereas if you have a 10 unit, even one person moves out, okay, like it's not great, but you're still 90% occupied. 2 people move out, you're still 80% occupied. So that's the benefit of multifamily. But with the single family, again, when we were flipping it, I told my wife, because she's a little more risk adverse than I am, so was definitely very hesitant. I said, look, if we turn this house and totally renovate it, put all this money into it, and we can't sell it, we can at least refinance, get a loan on it, rent it, and we'll probably make money every month, like just a little bit, but we'll be fine. So the risk, is small because we're not going to lose a bunch of money. We'll just rent it out, right? If we couldn't rent it, we could still afford the mortgage on that property along with ours. So worst case scenario actually was that we're paying down the mortgage on 2 properties, right? Not what we want. That's not getting us really anywhere very fast, that's for sure. But that's not that bad, So if someone can at least start there, if you've got enough extra monthly income to afford 2 mortgages, then go buy a single family home. And the worst case is it sits empty and you're paying off the mortgage, right? So you're building equity. I mean, again, it's not great, I'm saying, but if that's the worst case scenario, that's not that risky, right? That's not that bad. And then I would say, once you get into multifamily, let's say you buy a 10 unit, like I said, and now you're not so worried about being, 100% vacant because, 10 people would have to move out. What I would say about that is as long as you're in a city that's doesn't have a decreasing population, or like probably it would almost have to be like a rapidly decreasing population, but as long as the population's steady, maybe it's just slowly increasing, and the building in that city is not significantly outpacing the population, which most cities aren't. I mean, everybody knows about the housing shortage. So really, in my opinion, your biggest risk is that you have to decrease rent. So if people move out and you've got vacancy, well, you advertise it and you get somebody else. If you can't find somebody else, lower your rent. If you lower your rent enough, I mean, somebody's going to move in, because when you're the cheapest place, they're going to move in. And so again, that's not ideal. That's not the goal, obviously, but your building's not going to sit vacant. Like, you lower the rent enough and people move in. So that's where you got to be smart with your underwriting. If you underwrite and hey, we've got to hit $900 a month in rent, or else, this business plan is not going to work, and you have to lower rent to $800. Well, that's not okay. But as long as you say, hey, if we hit 900, awesome, we're going to make a bunch of money. If we have to lower it all the way to 800, not going to make too much. If we have to lower it all the way to 700, then we're hurting. You're going to be good in that scenario.
Yeah, so thank you for explaining all the risks, or most of the risks to us, Lee. And so I had a question. So do you invest locally, or do you do international as well? How have you expanded like that?
Sure. So far, everything's been local. Everything's been right here, not my hometown by any means, but I kind of live between Dayton and Cincinnati, Ohio, and everything's been in and then all around Dayton. So my properties probably have spanned like being like an hour apart, but for me, I can kind of get to everything within like 45 minutes.
That's even better for you, so you as an investor can check in.
Exactly.
So you talked about apartment syndicating. So would you mind going into more detail? Like what exactly is that, and what jobs does it entail?
Sure. Yeah. So to kind of set it up, when I started out, my first multifamily was a 16 unit, but it was in a rural area, very small unit. So it was only $350,000. So we only needed $70,000 to close on that, 20% down, right? So one person can probably come up with $70,000. If not, 2 or 3 people can. And then let's say you need an extra $30,000 for the rehab. So you need $100,000 to take down that property, reposition it, and operate it, right? So in my scenario, when we did that, one person brought that money, but there were 3 of us in on the deal. 3 people could probably come up with $100,000. So then you just do a joint venture. So syndication says, well, let's not buy a 16 unit. Let's buy a 100 unit. And instead of $350,000, it's going to cost, $5 million. Well, on $5 million, you need to raise $1 million for your 20% down payment. And then, your rehab cost might be more like $500,000. So, 3 guys, probably most 3 guys I know, myself included, we can't come up with $500,000 a piece. So now we're talking about, hey, maybe it's 20 people that come together to come up with $1.5 million. Now that's a syndication, because the difference between a joint venture and a syndication is, in a joint venture, everybody is an active partner. Everybody is a general partner. Everybody has a job. Everybody's doing something. Maybe one guy is kind of managing the property manager. Maybe one guy is the property manager. Maybe one guy handles the unit turns and all the maintenance and stuff like that. And maybe one guy is like handling all the financials, right? And just getting in, income management. So that's kind of how that would work. When you syndicate, you might have 3 guys as well, and they might have all 3 of those jobs, but then you have another 17 people that all they did was give money. And if all you do is put money into a deal, then you're a passive investor. And that technically, like that has to be a syndication, because you're now kind of like selling securities is what the SEC says. I'm selling securities to these 17 passive investors, just the way companies, on the stock market exchange do. They sell securities for their company. That's what we're doing. So we're regulated that way. So that's the difference. Basically, you're buying bigger, more expensive properties. So you need to bring in more investors. You can't give everybody a job. It's going to be a few people doing all the work. Everybody else is a passive investor. So they just give you the money. Their risk is limited to just their investment, whereas the general partners are always signing on the loan. And if it's a recourse loan, then their risk is they can come after their assets and stuff like that. But that's basically kind of how that's set up and why you would do that. You want to go for bigger, more expensive properties. So you're going to need a lot more investors.
Thank you for this insight, Lee. It should give our listeners a little bit of perspective on, hey, like if we're interested in real estate, like what do you want to do? Do you want to do more of like risk heavy or like the opposite?